the quiet dark of space, a weak signal played again and again. "Help us, and please. Our planet is dying." But no one answered. The message had been sent 50 years ago from a small planet called Korafi. It came from a species called the Tari. Tiny beings with soft blue skin, large eyes, and peaceful minds. They had no weapons, no warships, no soldiers, just knowledge, art, and stories. The galaxy called them useless. So when they asked for help, the galaxy turned away. But one day, something changed. A human scavenger ship flew past the ruins of a dead trade route. The ship was old and rusty. It was named the Stray Hawk, and the man flying it was Elias Rayner. He was a simple man, a wanderer, no family, no crew, just him and the stars. That day, while searching for scrap, his ship picked up something strange, a signal no one had responded to in decades. It was weak, broken, and covered in static. But Elias heard a voice, a child's voice. "Please, we are alone. We are dying." Elias sat back in his chair and frowned. "This can't be real," he said softly. "Who's still sending this after so long?" He traced the signal. It came from the Cora system. That was deep, in no one's zone, a dead space full of broken ships and silence. The map said Cora Phi was finished. A virus, a famine, and a war had destroyed everything there. No life signs, no energy, nothing. Still, the signal kept playing. Elias stared at the screen. He could turn away, forget it, and move on. But he didn't. He changed course. It took him 2 days to reach the system. As his ship entered orbit, clouds of ash covered the planet like a blanket. Fires had long died out, but the land still looked burnt and broken. No signs of life, no sounds, only ruins. He landed in what used to be a city. The buildings were small and round, made from silver metal and soft stone. Now most were broken. Some had holes like they'd been burned from the inside. Elias stepped out wearing a breathing mask. The air was thin. He walked for hours. Silence followed him everywhere. But then he heard something. A beep. Soft. Weak. It was coming from beneath a fallen building. He dug through the rubble with his hands, pushing stones aside, breaking metal sheets. At last, he found an old data terminal, half buried and blinking, and near it, a small shape, a child. She was barely alive. Her skin was cold and her eyes closed. She was no bigger than a backpack, her fingers curled around the edge of the data terminal. Elias knelt beside her. "Hey, are you alive?" asked gently. She didn't move. He checked her chest. Still breathing. Barely. He picked her up carefully. Her body was too light. He could feel every bone. He wrapped her in his coat and rushed back to his ship. Inside the Stray Hawk, he laid her on the med table and started emergency care. Fluids, oxygen, warmth. He didn't know if it would work. She was too far gone. But after hours passed, she opened her eyes. Big, glassy, glowing blue eyes. She stared at him, scared, confused, weak. He smiled softly. "Hey, you're safe now. I'm not going to hurt you." Her lips moved slowly. "Where are the others?" Elias paused. "I don't know. I didn't see anyone else." Tears filled her eyes. She clutched the edge of the blanket. "Gone," she whispered. "What's your name?" he asked. "Luma," she said. "Okay, Luma. My name is Elias. I'm human. I came because I heard your signal." Her eyes widened. "You heard it?" He nodded. "Yes, I followed it here." She shook her head, crying. "Everyone said no one would come. They said we were not important. They said we were trash." Elias looked at her, his jaw tight. He had heard those words before. Words like that were used to crush the weak, the poor, the forgotten. He gently placed a hand over hers. "Well, I'm here. You're not trash. And I'm not leaving you. Luma closed her eyes and wept. Later that night, Elias stared out at the dead city below. He thought about what he had seen. Burnt homes, empty cribs, cold streets. Someone had destroyed this place. Not just nature or time, but something else. Someone had wanted the Tari gone. And now, this little girl might be the last. Elias clenched his fists. I don't know who did this, he whispered. But I swear, I'll protect her. Whatever it takes. Far behind him on a mountain ridge, a red light blinked. A camera lens turned. A robotic eye watched the ship and sent a silent message into space. One survived. And she is no longer alone. The ship was silent. Only the soft sound of breathing came from the medical bed. Elias sat nearby, watching the small alien girl sleep. Her name was Luma, and she was the last spark from a world turned to ashes. He hadn't slept. His thoughts kept racing. Why was she left alone? Why was there no one else? And worse, who wanted the Tari dead in the first place? Suddenly, the girl moved. Her eyes opened slowly. She looked up at him with glowing blue eyes full of sadness. And something else. Fear. Do you remember anything? Elias asked gently, leaning closer. Luma blinked. Her voice was dry, just a whisper. They came from the sky, a machine's red eyes loud. Elias's heart sank. She wasn't just left behind, she was hunted. Where were your people? Your family? Luma's lips trembled. Hiding. Mama told me not to cry. But then the ground shook, walls fell, everyone screamed. And then, silence. Elias swallowed hard. He had seen the broken buildings, the black scorch marks. That wasn't war. That was extermination. But why? What threat could peaceful, soft-spoken beings like the Tari ever be? Can you walk? He asked. She nodded weakly. He helped her up. Her feet touched the ship's floor, shaky and unsure. Elias gave her a protein bar. She sniffed it, then slowly ate. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she chewed. Elias turned away to give her space. But then the lights flickered. What the? Elias turned back toward the controls. The ship's interface flashed. Unreadable symbols ran across the screen, then shifted into perfect human English. Language adjusted. Tari Neurolink detected. Elias spun around. Luma was staring at the control panel. Her eyes glowed brighter now. Lines of light ran across her forehead, but she looked calm, focused. Luma, did you do that? She blinked and nodded. I just wanted to understand your ship. It's loud, cold. I didn't mean to break anything. Elias stared, stunned. You didn't break it. You reprogrammed it. Luma tilted her head, confused. Is that bad? No, he said, still trying to process what he'd seen. It's impossible. She looked down. Mama said we were special, but the others said we were broken. Wrong. That's why no one helped us. Elias took a deep breath. Something strange was going on. This girl wasn't just a survivor. She was more than that, something powerful, and someone out there had tried to erase that. Suddenly, the ship jolted. Warning alarm screamed. Impact detected, rear hull breach, unknown object attached. Elias jumped into the pilot seat. The radar flashed red. Something was crawling on the outside of the ship. Fast, mechanical. He turned to Luma. Stay, here. Hide. Don't come out unless I call you. She nodded and slid under the med table. Elias grabbed his shock blaster and headed to the rear hatch. The lights above flickered as if something was draining power. He opened the manual panel. Outside in the swirling ash, he saw it. A metal spider-like machine, black with long, thin legs and glowing red eyes. It was drilling into the ship's engine. Elias raised his weapon. Bam. The blast hit the side of the machine. It turned, hissed, and jumped at him. Elias ducked and fired again, this time hitting the core, Sparks flew. The creature screeched and exploded in a burst of smoke and wires. He coughed and closed the hatch, heart pounding. When he returned to the med bay, Luma was still under the table, eyes wide with fear. "It's gone," Elias said, kneeling beside her. "But that thing wasn't from here. It came for you." Luma nodded slowly. "They call them the purge crawlers. They find anything with Tari scent and kill." "Who sent them?" She looked up at him. Her voice was barely a whisper. "The Council." Elias froze. "The Galactic Council? The group that ruled trade, laws, and diplomacy across the stars? They said we were a danger. They told the galaxy we were dying anyway. So they gave permission to erase us." Elias stood up, face hardening. "They made sure no one would help you. They let your kind die, and no one stopped them." He looked at the stars through the cockpit window. "I will." Luma crawled out and stood beside him. "Why are you helping me?" she asked softly. Everyone else ran. Elias looked down at her. "Because I know what it feels like to be thrown away." She took his hand gently. Her fingers were warm now. "Then I won't run either," she said. As the stray hawk flew away from the ashes of Korafiv, two hearts, one human, one alien, shared a silent promise. They were not finished yet, and far across space, red lights blinked again. The machines had failed. Now, the real hunt would begin. The stars outside the ship looked calm, but inside Elias's heart a storm was building. Luma had just told him the truth. The Galactic Council, the highest authority in the galaxy, had ordered her people destroyed. Not because they were dangerous, but because they were different. They called the Tari a threat to order, and now they were hunting a child. Elias sat in the cockpit of the stray hawk, watching the stars streak by. Luma was asleep again, curled in a blanket, her hand clutching a piece of her old home, a crystal memory shard. It glowed faintly in the dark, but the piece didn't last long. Alert. Unidentified signal approaching, the ship's AI voice said coldly. Elias quickly activated the radar. 3 objects. No ID codes. Moving fast. Silent. He narrowed his eyes. "They're jamming our systems." Then something strange happened. The lights dimmed, the engines flickered, and the ship began to slow, not by Elias's command. He slammed buttons and tried to override the controls. "Come on, Hawk, stay with me." Suddenly, everything stopped. The ship hung in space, frozen. Even time felt slower. Then, from outside, a shape appeared. At first, Elias thought it was a ship, but it wasn't. It was a drone carrier, a floating metal beast silent and covered in strange runes. Its shape was unnatural, like someone had designed it to frighten minds, not just destroy. A voice came through the radio, flat, robotic, cold. "Surrender the asset. The last Tari must be neutralized." Elias's hand moved to the weapon at his side. "No," he said quietly. "She's not yours." Refusal logged. Execution protocol activated. The enemy drone ship opened. From its belly, 6 mechanical creatures launched into the void, heading straight for Elias's ship. Each one had claws like blades, red glowing sensors, and a single symbol burned into their bodies. The sigil of the Galactic Purity Order. Elias didn't wait. He hit the emergency power switch. The ship rebooted with a painful hum, sparks flying from the console. He pulled hard on the controls, dodging as the first drone shot past them like a black arrow. Luma woke up and screamed, "What's happening?" "We've got company," Elias shouted. "Stay hidden." The girl didn't argue this time. Outside, the sky was chaos. Drones zipped through space, firing high-speed plasma bolts. One clipped the ship's wing, sending the stray hawk spinning. Elias fought for control. His fingers bled from the sharp edges of the broken console. One drone latched onto the window, face to face with Elias. Its mechanical claws screeched across the glass. Its eye glowed, scanning. Then suddenly, it stopped moving. Elias blinked. The drone shook, glitched, And then, right in front of him, it shut down, crashing off the window and drifting into space like dead metal. What the? Then he heard a soft hum behind him. He turned. Luma. Her eyes were glowing again, but brighter. Lines of light ran up her neck like veins of energy. Her fingers moved slowly like she was playing invisible strings in the air. Elias stared. Did you do that? I didn't mean to, she said quietly. It just listened to me. He blinked hard. Luma, those things were made to kill. If you can stop them, and that changes everything. She looked scared. I don't know how, I just felt it, like it was part of me. Another drone attacked, this time trying to slice the engine. But before Elias could fire, Luma raised her hand again. The drone froze in space, turned, and then it shot at one of its own. Elias watched in disbelief as the machines turned on each other, fighting like confused beasts. Luma fell to her knees, exhausted. The final drone exploded in the distance, leaving the dark space quiet once more. Elias rushed to her. Luma, are you okay? She nodded, breathing hard. It hurts, but I'm fine. He helped her to the med bed again. You didn't just survive your people's fall, he said. You're evolving. Whatever they tried to erase, it's still inside you. Luma looked at him with frightened eyes. Is that bad? Elias shook his head. No, but it means we're in more danger than ever. Later, as Elias repaired the damage, he thought about what just happened. The machines were programmed to kill, but she overrode them without tools, no device, no tech. Just her mind. If the council found out she had this power, they would stop at nothing. They would send more. They would send worse. But Elias didn't care. He looked at the little alien girl sleeping in the corner and made a silent promise. You're not just a child anymore. You're the key to something bigger, and I'll die before I let them touch you again. The stray hawk floated above a peaceful trade hub orbiting the moon of Solaris Prime. Bright lights, polished ships, rich diplomats. But peace was only a mask. Elias had come here to do something dangerous, face the Galactic Council. He walked through the glass doors of the Grand Hall, holding Luma's memory crystal. Luma stayed hidden aboard the ship. Her safety came first. But Elias had seen enough. The galaxy needed to know the truth. At the council gates, 2 tall armored guards blocked his path. State your name and business, one said, scanning him. Elias, Rayner, independent trader. I'm here under Emergency Protocol 17. The guards paused. One frowned. That code hasn't been used in over 30 years. Well, maybe someone should have used it sooner. Elias snapped. Inside the great chamber, everything looked perfect. Clean, gold-trimmed walls, floating lights, and 12 council leaders sitting high above. Each one represented a powerful species. They looked down at Elias like he was dirt on their boots. The chairwoman, a tall insectoid named Yuntel, spoke first. You have 5 minutes, human. Be quick. Elias stepped forward and held up the glowing memory crystal. This was recorded by Atari Child. She is still alive. Whispers filled the hall. Yuntel narrowed her many eyes. Impossible. The Tari species is extinct. That's what you want everyone to think, Elias said coldly. But I found her. She's real. She told me everything. The purge crawlers, the attacks, the order to exterminate. The insect leader leaned back. You are speaking dangerous lies. Elias glared. You killed an entire species because they were different. You said they were weak, but they weren't. You were scared. You knew the truth. The Tari were evolving. Another council member, a reptilian lord named Vreshka, hissed. They were unstable. Their neural abilities could disrupt tech across systems. They were a threat to galactic order. She's just a child, Elias shouted. Yuntel's voice turned cold. And that child is not your concern. If what you say is true, bring her to us. We will study her safely. Elias laughed bitterly. You mean dissect her? Silence fell. Then Yuntel leaned forward. Final warning, human. Surrender the child, and we'll forget your intrusion. Elias looked around the room. So many eyes, so many powerful voices, but no one stood up. No one cared. She begged for help, he whispered. 50 years her voice cried across space and no one listened. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. You don't need to hunt her, he said, voice low. You already lost. She's stronger than you ever expected. And now she's not alone. Back on the Stray Hawk, Luma sat quietly in the cockpit watching the stars. When Elias returned, his face was hard. They won't help us, he said. They never planned to. Luma nodded. I know. I heard them. I was listening. He blinked. From here? I can feel their words. Not just here. It's strange. Elias sat down beside her. We're not safe, Luma. They'll send others, not just drones. Real hunters, trained to destroy what they fear. Luma looked down. I don't want to hurt anyone. You won't, Elias said softly. But if they try to take you, they'll learn what happens when someone cares enough to fight back. Suddenly, the ship's console beeped. New message received. Anonymous source. Elias opened it. A single line of text appeared. We know she's alive. They're coming for you, Elias. Run. Below it, coordinates flashed. Not just any coordinates. A hidden planet, buried deep in the old Tari system. Elias stared at the screen. This wasn't from the council. Someone else sent it. Luma looked at him. Should we go? He stood slowly. If it's a trap, we'll be ready. But if it's real, maybe someone still remembers the truth. As the Stray Hawk lifted off Solaris Prime and disappeared into the stars, one thing became clear. The council had made a mistake. They thought silence could erase history. But now, a human had heard the forgotten cry. And the galaxy would soon hear it too. The stars outside were quiet. But inside the Stray Hawk, something was changing. Luma sat at the edge of her small bed, holding the glowing memory crystal tight against her chest. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear, from energy. Strange energy. Elias stood at the main console, watching her from the corner of his eye. For the last 3 days, the ship had been glitching. Lights flickering, doors sliding open without reason, systems updating themselves without a command. It wasn't broken. It was Luma. Earlier that morning, Elias had found her in the engine room. She wasn't touching anything, just standing near the core, but the engine had been floating, tools spinning slowly in the air around her. No gravity field was active. She was humming. When he called her name, the floating objects fell, and Luma had cried. I didn't mean to, she whispered. It just happens when I'm thinking. I try to stop it, but it's like the ship hears me. Elias didn't shout, didn't panic. He simply knelt down and said, Then maybe it's time to learn why it hears you. Now the ship raced through deep space toward the hidden coordinates sent by the anonymous message. A dead planet near the heart of the old Tari. Region? No charts listed it. No satellites scanned it. It was erased from galactic memory, which made Elias trust it even less. Almost there, he said. Luma nodded but didn't speak. Her glowing eyes stayed focused on the crystal. The symbols on it had changed, new shapes, spinning slowly, like it was rewriting itself. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed from the ship's AI system. Incoming anomaly. Prepare for atmospheric breach. What? Elias leaned forward. Outside, a planet appeared, covered in white mist and floating land masses. Blue cracks ran through its surface, like glowing rivers. Is this it? Luma asked quietly. I hope so. The ship dipped downward, sliding through thick fog. No cities, no lights, no signs of life. Just ruins, broken towers, stone gates, half-sunken temples. Then something happened. The ship slowed. By itself. Hey, Elias said, tapping the manual. Controls. I didn't tell you to land. I didn't either, Luma whispered. The ship turned toward a glowing crater filled with mist and soft blue light, and it landed with a quiet hum. The air was breathable. They stepped outside. The ground pulsed gently beneath their boots. It was like the planet was alive. Luma walked ahead, drawn toward a circle of old stones. She placed the memory crystal into a stone socket. It clicked. Suddenly the earth shook. The ruins came alive. Lights rose from the ground. Images formed in the air, holograms of her people. Hundreds of them, smiling, working, laughing. And then, a final recording. A tall Tari female, dressed in ceremonial white, appeared. Her voice was kind but filled with sorrow. If you are seeing this, then we are gone and you are the last. The council feared us, not for what we were, but what we were becoming. Our minds were changing. Our children began to speak, to machines, to each other. Without words, we were evolving faster than anyone imagined. They called us dangerous. We were only different. But if you have survived, young one, know this. You carry the spark, the last of our future. Protect it, grow it, and one day, light the stars again. The hologram vanished. Luma was crying. Elias stood beside her, stunned. They weren't weak, he said slowly. They were special. That's why the council lied, why they wiped you out. Luma looked up. Her hands were glowing softly. I can hear things now, she said. Not voices, feelings, signals. Even this place. It remembers us. As she spoke, the stones around her lifted. The glowing lines beneath the earth spread outward. Then something happened. Elias would never forget. The ruined city rebuilt itself. Walls stood up again. Towers reformed. Lights shimmered. The old machines came back online, not in pieces, but as one perfect humming structure. Elias gasped. You're restoring your world. No, Luma whispered. The world is restoring me. A new energy wave spread from her chest and echoed into the sky. Satellites reactivated. Shields hummed. A signal pulsed out from the heart of the planet. A new message. We are not gone. The last Tari lives. Far away in a hidden chamber of the council's core station, red alarms blared. One of the elders stood from his seat and shouted, Her signature just lit up again. She's awakened an ancient node. Another leaned forward. How is this possible? The purge was complete. No, the eldest among them hissed. We missed one. And now, she is calling to others. Back on the glowing planet, Elias placed a hand on Luma's shoulder. What happens now, he asked. She looked at him, her eyes brighter than ever. Now, they come for us. Elias stood at the top of a glowing tower, wind brushing through his hair. Below him, the once dead planet was alive again. Thanks to Luma. The last Tari child had awakened an ancient power, and now the world itself seemed to breathe with her heartbeat. But peace wouldn't last. He looked up at the sky. He knew they were coming. The signal had gone out, clear and strong. The last Tari lives. That message had reached every listening ear in the galaxy, including the ones that wanted Luma destroyed. Inside, the control chamber, Luma sat quietly, surrounded by old machines that hummed and blinked like they recognized her. The walls glowed with soft light. Data flowed through the air like mist. Her fingers floated above the console, but she wasn't touching anything. She didn't need to. The system was speaking directly to her mind. Elias stepped in, dusty and tired from scanning the outer perimeter. You okay? Luma nodded. The planet is helping me learn. It remembers everything, even the truth. Elias raised an eyebrow. What truth? She turned to face him, her glowing eyes serious. The council didn't destroy us because we were dangerous. They destroyed us because we were going to replace them. Elias frowned. You mean Your kind was supposed to lead the galaxy? Luma nodded slowly. Not with war, with harmony. We were building a network that linked minds, emotions, even machines. A galaxy that shared, not ruled. But they feared losing power. Elias's jaw clenched. So they buried it all. And now, Luma said softly, they'll try again. That night, as Elias slept near the ship, Luma walked into the forest of glowing trees. She stood before an old statue of her people, touching its cracked hand. Suddenly, her body lit with energy, and her voice echoed across space, not through sound but through thought. I am Luma of the Tari. I live. I remember. And I am not alone. Elsewhere, across distant planets, something stirred. A young alien child in a mining colony suddenly collapsed, whispering, I hear her. A broken AI in a scrapyard rebooted itself and began drawing the ancient symbols of the Tari. An old monk deep in the mountains opened his eyes for the first time in a decade and said, the voice has returned. Back on the restored planet, the sky turned red. They had arrived. 5 warships marked with the Council's seal descended like blades. Their weapons were ready, their shields glowing. Elias stared at them from the tower. They didn't waste time. Luma joined him, calm and steady. They'll destroy this planet. Elias shook his head. Not if I destroy them first. She grabbed his hand. You don't have to fight alone. He smiled gently. I know. But I've been alone before. I've survived. This time, I'm not just surviving. I'm protecting. He jumped into the cockpit of the Stray Hawk. It wasn't built for battle. It was old, rusty. But Elias had modified it over the years. And now, with Luma's help, it ran smoother than ever. He took off, heading straight for the first enemy ship. Stray Hawk to Council Fleet, he shouted through the comms. This is your only warning. Leave now, or I'll make you leave. A cold voice replied, You are interfering with Council justice. Surrender the asset and your life will be spared. No thanks, Elias said. I already made my choice. The battle started. Elias flew fast, dodging laser blasts, spinning between warships. One by one he struck their weak points, Luma's. Connection to the old data systems had revealed every blind spot. Boom. One warship down. Boom. Another spiraled, its engines flaming. But then, the largest ship locked onto him. Elias couldn't dodge in time. He braced for impact, and then everything stopped. Time slowed, the air shimmered, and the enemy's weapon turned around. It fired at its own fleet. On the planet below, Luma stood with her eyes closed, arms raised. Her voice was calm but powerful. No more destruction, no more lies. This ends now. The Council ships began shutting down, one by one, systems freezing, engines dying. Elias stared out the window, breathless. She had taken control of an entire fleet. Not with weapons, with her mind. Back on the planet, as the last ship crashed gently into a mountain, no explosions, just silence, Elias landed beside her. He stepped out, shaking his head in awe. I thought I was here to protect you, he said. You did, Luma smiled. And now I'm ready to protect others. But it wasn't over. Far in the Council's hidden chambers, red alarms blared again. She's too powerful now, one elder growled. We need something stronger than warships. Another whispered, she's waking up the rest. Their screens showed blinking lights across the galaxy, signals lighting up. Others like her were beginning to remember. They said the Tari were gone. They said their fire had been put out forever. But on this day, every corner of the galaxy watched as a forgotten light returned. The galaxy's largest news relay, UnityNet, suddenly went dark. Then it lit up again, not with a council message, not with propaganda, but with a live feed from a tiny unregistered planet glowing softly in the void, a place no one had mapped. a place no one remembered, until now. In the center of that world stood Luma, no longer the scared child Elias had found under the ruins. Now she stood tall in her ceremonial robe, woven from threads of memory and energy, her eyes glowing like two stars. Around her floated the rebuilt city of the Tari, alive again. And beside her, wearing a beaten pilot's jacket, stood Elias Rayner, the one human who had refused to walk away. Millions, no, billions, of screens tuned in. Aliens on massive space. Stations paused mid-meal. Humans working deep in mining colonies froze. Even council members leaned forward, unable to stop what was coming. Then Luma spoke, not with her voice, but with her thoughts. Clear, calm, and full of truth. We are the Tari. We were called weak. We were hunted. We were erased. But we are not gone. We are reborn. The world around her pulsed with each word. Ancient machines lit up again, casting a golden glow into the sky. Trees bloomed in seconds. Rivers ran backward, carrying liquid memory from ages past. Elias turned on a device, a projector, and it replayed the hidden files Luma had unlocked. Evidence. Secret orders from the Galactic Council to exterminate the Tari. Documents showing how they silenced planets that tried to help. Video logs of the Tari healing machines calming storms and sharing tech for free. The galaxy watched in silence. And then it rose in anger. All over the stars, people took action. On Wraith Prime, citizens protested outside a council hall. On Xerox, high rebel fleets rebranded themselves the Tari Defense Union. On Earth, the Human Alliance sent an emergency vote to pull out of the council entirely. A new hashtag flooded galactic networks. Tari live. Rayner stood. We remember. But the council was not done. Their secret weapon, the Null Titan, was already on its way. It was not a ship. It was a planet-sized AI, built to wipe memory, destroy thought, and erase even history itself. It had only one mission: silence the last Tari. The galaxy watched in terror as the Null Titan appeared, blocking out stars, swallowing light. Elias stood beside Luma as the ground trembled. You should run, he said quietly. You've done more than enough. Luma shook her head. No, I haven't done everything yet. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then she sang. Not with words, but with the pure vibration of memory. The world joined her, trees, machines, even the sky itself. Everything pulsed with the sound, and across the galaxy others answered. One by one, children like Luma, long lost, hidden, scared, began to sing back. The song formed a wave, a thread of connection across all space. It reached the Null Titan, and it stopped. Frozen. The AI scanned itself, confused. It couldn't fight what it didn't understand, and what it heard was not war. It was hope. The Titan shut itself down. It bowed. The crowd across the stars gasped. No one had ever seen a weapon surrender. Later, as the sky cleared, Elias and Luma stood at the edge of the cliff, looking out at the world they had saved. The transmission ended, but the message lived on. The galaxy would never forget this day. The day a child once left to die in the ashes stood tall and told the universe, we still matter. Elias looked at her and smiled. So, what now? Luma took his hand and whispered, now, we build again.